it brought a lot of good souls and our energy together, and that energy was really uplifting in a time of so much negativity and restrictions. My industry, I didn't work for 18 months because venues were closed and hospitality was severely impacted. I'm angry about that because they stole our income and denied us the right to work. And the industry I worked in complied with it. I remember on Twitter I was lambasted by other contemporaries in the music industry because I posted videos from rallies and you're an anti-vaxxer and you're risking other people's lives by going in. Look at these rallies. It's just like, you just don't know. You don't understand. You don't understand what's going on here. This whole agenda is driven through fear, fear.
Low vibrational.
Crisis, fear, death, doom, all of this. This audacious plan is failing. It's failing. And we remain intentional that they are not going to triumph. Evil shall not triumph.
I'm delighted to have with me today a pioneering, world-famous DJ, Danny Rampling. And not only are you a DJ of some fame, but you're also a music producer, you've been a radio presenter, you still are a radio presenter, you've also been a club promoter. It's so nice to have you here.
My pleasure.
So first of all, could you tell us a little bit about how you got into music? What was it that took you in that direction?
How did I get into music? Through the radio. My mother would listen to the radio when I was a kid, and I was fascinated by the radio, how sound was transmitted through a small little transistor box radio on the kitchen work surface, and that was the beginnings of the obsession with music and collecting vinyl, just collecting music, and just radio is that's the basis of it. And I was obsessed with the imagination. There's this thing around the imagination that radio evokes, and I used to imagine, well, who is that presenting, and what do they look like, and what does the studio look like, and where is the studio? So radio does conjure up that imagination, and that's the powerful thing and a beautiful thing about radio. It evokes imagination. Everything is very visual now, isn't it? Going back to childhood, and then I had aspirations and dreams to become a radio presenter. Through those early years of listening to radio, and I followed that path, got some breaks. I began on the inception of the pirate station Kiss FM, and I was fortunately given a late night show on there on a Tuesday night, Wednesday morning at some unearthly hour with probably a handful of taxi drivers and night shift workers listening in. But that's how I got into radio, and I'm eternally grateful to Gordon Mack, who created Kiss Radio in London, and that was the soundtrack. That was the voice of young London, and progressed through Kiss to a primetime weekend show on Friday first, then Saturday, and from there I went to BBC Radio 1 for several years. So, and currently I'm on Force Radio, forceradio.live. Which is on Saturdays, weekly Saturdays between 7 and 9 p.m. And I love radio. I love presenting music and radio shows and doing what I love. I'm very blessed to do what I love and still be, some over 35 years later, out there being booked to play shows, and it's everything. It's my life. It's music is my life. So yeah, and I don't take anything for granted, So what if there's a queue in an airport? It's kind of that's is what it is.
Listening to the radio in your mum's kitchen, you said.
Yeah.
What sort of songs were inspiring you? What kind of music?
Pop music, Tamla Motown, that's my early roots in music. Gosh, back then, kind of Sweet, dare I say it, the Glitter Band, all of those, David Bowie, all those pop stars, Mark Bolan, T-Rex, all those pop stars of the time, coupled with Tamla Motown. Tamla Motown was huge in the 60s and 70s, well, it still is today. So that was my formation and foundations of music, and I have broad taste in music, and it's linked to what I was listening to on the radio as that influenced me as a kid. Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And what about the step into becoming a DJ and having your own club? We heard a story that you went to Ibiza,
yeah,
and you met their DJ Alfredo, I believe he was called.
That's right, yeah.
And he had the club Amnesia,
yeah.
And they say that really changed the course of your life as well.
Well, absolutely, my journey, because I was aspiring to be a club DJ, and I knew I was going to get there at some point. It was just how, when, and where. And that trip was very eventful to Ibiza that summer in 1987 for Paul Oakenfold's birthday. In August, we went to Ibiza and then went to Amnesia, this open air club, with an Argentinian DJ, DJ Alfredo, playing in the open air, and hearing house music and electronic music fused with the kind of openness of the Balearic sound. Yeah, it was completely life-changing and very inspiring, and returned to London with all of this influence, and then I began a club called Shoom, which, that's where really my career really did begin professionally.
And do you think you had some kind of visualization? Could you already see yourself like being this DJ? And I think I listened somewhere that you talked about this. You wanted to be in that top booth in like a club like Heaven, and you were going to be the main person. And that actually happened, I think, isn't it?
That did happen, yeah. But I did have the vision that I wanted to be a DJ and have my own night and a receptive audience of music lovers, and everything aligned at the right time. So I was already manifesting this in my mind and my outlook, but I didn't know at that time that it looked like that, kind of the whole house and acid house scene. And that came along, and it was a revolutionary time musically and fashion and the whole, youth culture at that time. And we transformed that collectively. And it really did create a whole collective consciousness within this house and acid house, and then later the rave movement. It just broke down all of the social taboos, and kind of everything just melded together. Kind of you'd have pop stars dancing with kids who are just like street kids and art students and builders and all sorts.
Bringing all the different eclectic mix of people together.
Totally eclectic and inclusive. And kind of we hear this buzzword now. You've got to be inclusive. That's what happened back then in the summers of love of 87, 88 and 89. That's what happened. But now that's the buzzword, isn't it?
Yes. And how did you go about setting up the club and finding a venue? And was it fairly straightforward? Everything just sort of started to fall into place? And I know it was in Southwark, isn't it? Shoom started off in
Thrale Street. It was a gymnasium, and I played there at an engagement party 3 years previous to returning there and speaking with the management, and then they gave me a Saturday night there. They used to host private events there on the Saturday, so they gave me a trial night, and then the second event, the first event was okay, the second event, things started going to plan, and then it became weekly in a short space of time. Wow. So we were there for probably about a year, and it was an incredible experience, and Shoom really was the catalyst and benchmark for the rave scene that followed and everything. It was a pioneering club, free state of hedonism, great music, and it became a family. The space only held about 280, 300 people at a squeeze. So it was very hot, strobe lights, smoke, cherry and apple scented smoke, painted banners all around the walls and a mirrored wall. And it was, we transported people to another world. That's what happened there. And the combined energy and collective consciousness, you know, that time there was so much optimism and hope and change in the air, and so much love and unity that, you know, kind of far removed from this, you know, kind of Thatcher's Britain at the time. You know, we were an apolitical movement. We weren't interested in Thatcher and, you know, the politics of that time. We created our own scene, and what happened with that, it's become a, you know, a multi-billion dollar pound, whatever you like to say, industry, you know, internationally. But through those, you know, kind of the whole sequence of events, we were all played a part in that. But it just gave lots of people opportunity and hope.
Yes.
You know, and also it opened a door to many people following their dreams in the creative world.
Yes.
There's people mixing with each other, you know, kind of from the world of theatre and dance and music and production and art, all melded together. So yeah, there was a lot of opportunities that came from that, and people followed their dreams. That was the message.
Yes.
So
you were
all
changing
of that
the world.
disparity of the 80s, because the 80s in Britain was it was difficult for particularly the working class, you know, and yeah, there was this divide like there is today. You know, very, very similar to what we're seeing today, you know, with the disparity and the cronyism and corruption of the political landscape. It's off the scale now, it's off the charts, but that's what was going on in the 80s.
You said it was the age of Aquarius or something, was that?
1987 was the harmonic convergence that took place in California. So all these things are interlinked, but yeah.
And so there was a whole load of optimism, basically.
Oh, there was a whole wave of it. Was a very optimistic time because, you know, around that time in 88, 89, the Berlin Wall was falling, apartheid was crumbling, and we were all changing. You know, we changed our own world, and the wider world was changing. So there was a real wave of optimism and togetherness and unity, and yeah, it was incredible, absolutely incredible. And that collective consciousness was being sent out to, you know, the wider world as such. And that happened, and that did have an effect. It had a profound effect on everybody's life that were drawn towards the music and the culture. It changed youth culture. It completely changed youth culture. But it wasn't just, you know, kind of like, you know, a demographic of 18 to 25. There were people that came along to the club who were in their 60s and 70s. Yeah, there was no ageism, and I've said this before, and there were no VIP areas. Everybody was a very important person that came along to the events. And that's how it was. It was just all about inclusion and yeah, a magical, unique time. And the social history of at that time, just incredible how it swept through the country in that, towards that summer of 88, into the summer of 88. It was happening in Manchester and Blackburn and then Scotland, and the whole thing just it multiplied and expanded, and then the tabloid newspapers scandalised and sensationalised the events and the scene, and what they actually did was they popularised the scene as such and the music. So, you know, kids and people were seeing this in the newspaper and think, let's have some of that. That looks fun.
Yes, absolutely.
So, thank you to the tabloid newspapers.
Backfired.
Oh, they tried to smear all of the positive aspects of the whole scene, and then later the rave scene, but it didn't work. It just made it the whole thing more popular, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
But it was a great time, that period. It was such a time of freedom, and we really, you know, this optimism that the world was changing, that there was going to be this world of unity, and And it really felt that way.
Yeah.
It
What
felt
went
that
wrong,
way.
do you think?
And this whole wave of empathy and
Yeah.
just, kind of...
So where did it all go wrong then? And
Where did it go
when
wrong?
When did you start to see the tides turning?
I don't think it's ever gone wrong, but, towards 1990, with the advent of the rave scene, which I didn't really participate in because it was very commercially driven.
That would be like things like the music like D-Mob and Acid.
We Call It Acid.
We Call It Acid.
Yes, yeah, it was a great track.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, I mean, around 1990, because then those raves, there was criminal activity going on, and then the criminal justice bill was brought in for the open air parties around. That was 1990.
Right.
A lot was changing. I remember going to that rally in Hyde Park, and there was a whole procession along towards Speaker's Corner, and Tony Benn, one of the greatest politicians, or the greatest politician, was talking on the stage about the criminal justice bill. And that was a real turning point. And there was Castle Morton that went on for days, and there were like hundreds of thousands of people who came through there over a few days. So all of this was happening at the same time, and that really shifted the all of that big outdoor party scene, and things started to move into clubs, and that's how the super clubs began. Yeah. Ministry of Sound, Cream in Liverpool, because everything was going back into the club side of things. But also at the same time, the rave scene really influenced the festival scene, and the festival scene that we see today, that we love and know. The festival scene was more about rock music and indie music and bands. There wasn't DJs back then, really. The DJ would introduce, I might play some music between the bands. But the rave scene transformed the festival scene with all the attractions that were put into festivals and the light shows and everything. A lot of that influence came from the rave scene. So that's a positive on the rave scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about the association with drugs? So MDMA and of course acid.
Right.
How much of that had played such an influence on the music as well? Did the drugs bring people together as well? Did that help to, or was that would have happened anyway, do you think?
Well, I think, kind of everything combined, but it wasn't solely driven by ecstasy and psychedelics. It was the combination of everything, like the movement in the 60s with Timothy Leary and the hippie movement, all that wonderful music, and they had psychedelics and Woodstock and everything. So, mods and rockers, mods with Purple Hearts and amphetamines, kind of dance all night. And every music scene has that there's something entwined.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I think that there was a lot of positives out of that as well. Yeah, yes, because it opened up a channel of empathy with people, and it also kind of reduced a lot of this tribal kind of people fighting each other. There's so much of that with hooliganism in the 1970s and 80s. Kind of different youth culture groups. People were, kind of there was always fighting going on, and the music and the culture just broke all of that down. Everyone came together. Incredible the experience of that, and feeling the collective consciousness, and moving into the present over the last 4 years. Yes. The big rallies, the big demonstrations, I don't call them protests because they're not protests, they're demonstrations of our numbers and our discontent for everything that's going on. Now, on those rallies, heart chakra wide open, and the frequency and the vibration from our heart chakra, that's a collective consciousness again. And I felt that was very, very parallel, obviously without the music as such, but what we were feeling back then in those summers of love of 88 and 89. The inclusion and the unity on the rallies, amazing.
Never to be forgotten. Never to be forgotten.
Oh gosh,
yeah.
you know
it
how
goosebumps and tears.
It brought everybody, well, not
joy.
everybody, but it brought a lot of good souls and our energy together, and that energy was really uplifting in a time of so much negativity and restrictions, and that collective consciousness that was expanding. And those rallies started out with a couple of hundred people, and then at the height of it was in 21, I think that was May, June or July, there were 2 enormous rallies. The press said that no, there was only a few thousand people there, but the calculations from the statistics were that there were up to 1 million people on one of those rallies. It was just a sea of people marching through London. It brought so much hope, didn't it? Absolutely, it did, and it gave a lot of people so much hope. Yeah. And also those rallies were something to look forward to. Let's reflect back on that time when everything was closed, and there was my industry. I didn't work for 18 months because venues were closed and hospitality was severely impacted. Yes. And the arts, and that makes me angry. I'm angry about that because they stole our income and denied us the right to work. And the industry I worked in complied with it. Yes. Clubs and festivals should have just stayed open, but they all complied with it because that was the thinking at that time. I think it would be a very different landscape now, and the way the economy has been severely impacted by this whole agenda. But those rallies were just so high vibration. Yeah. And you could feel so much love there, and that's what we were feeling back then in the Summer of Love days. Yeah. And the collective consciousness is powerful. We're all vibrating on the same frequency and level, and that is the energy that it's combined with hundreds of thousands of people or a couple of thousand people. The love that's being kind of emitted from our heart chakras is incredible. And people were coming from all over the country to those rallies, and some isolated in towns and feeling very alone, a lot of people, because of their views and what they were feeling, and realizing that kind of they are part of the Great Awakening, and that's what we're feeling, and we're part of this Great Awakening. And it gave those people a lot of hope as well when they were isolated and ostracised from families. So it became a family, and it was so uplifting, those rallies, so uplifting. Yeah, I can never forget it. I remember on Twitter I was lambasted by other contemporaries in the music industry because I posted videos from rallies, and you're an anti-vaxxer, and you're risking other people's lives by going in. Look at these rallies. Just like, you just don't know. You don't understand. You don't understand what's going on here.
No, they didn't. You have to have been there to have understood it, the feeling. If you were not there, you wouldn't have understood. No. What I would like to ask you then, going back, is how did you come to this awakening, so to speak? When did you realise that there was something wrong with the whole narrative, the whole COVID narrative?
After 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Initially, I kind of, as I said, I was slightly sceptical, and I'd been in Asia where it was more restrictive there, and I wore a mask on one flight, and then I decided not to wear that mask. No one challenged me, but when I first got there, that was really the start of it all. But here in Britain was when they announced 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Okay, fine. Okay, we'll go along with this. Yeah, okay, and it's all for the greater good. That was that's how it was presented. Yeah. But after that 2 weeks, and then it got extended, and then all of just work evaporated. Whole year of a full diary, just gone, evaporated. And I've been building things up over around 4 years, and got to this point of, and for many people and businesses, just decimated. Yeah. So it really, really affected me. I'm a very positive person, but I actually got depressed for a little bit. Yeah.
So you lost work pretty much for 18 months. You were solely dependent on playing and...
Well, that core income,
What about other colleagues? I mean, people in the industry that you knew, your people, your peers, and everyone that you'd worked together with. Did you get some solidarity from a group of people there, or were these the ones that were then later on criticising you before going to the rallies?
Yeah, it's water off a duck's back, really. You know, maybe now they might kind of think differently. I'm not really bothered about that. You know, I stand in for what I believe in. There's quite a few other people within the industry who, at that time, and still today, who, you know, of that thinking. But I do feel that more people are now questioning what's actually happened. But at that time, there was the projection of fear, and you know you're going to die, and there's this inherent. If you don't take precautions, and it's for your safety, you know, this inherent fear of death, which is ingrained in Western culture. You know, in other cultures, death is and the eventuality of a lifetime is accepted. And there isn't the fear around death that we see in Western culture. So they played on that and they triumphed through that. You know, people were really in this high fear of, oh God, we're going to die if we get this virus. Yeah. But I don't have fear of death. It's an eventuality. And I believe that when you do pass away or over, that's not the end. The soul and consciousness is eternal, and this is a vessel. This physicality is a vessel for our soul, and that's why it's such an amazing time to live through this thrilling, dangerous history right now.
Yes,
and we rise above the fear, because this whole agenda is driven through fear.
Yes.
Fear,
low vibrational
crisis, fear, death, doom, you know, all of this.
Yeah, the language is awful. The language is awful, isn't it?
It's wordplay.
Yeah.
It's wordplay. And
the one you don't like to use, the L word. Yeah.
No, I won't. I will not use that word.
That's wordplay.
But yes, yeah. So that really underpinned the fear, because people were behaving in irrational ways through fear. Then fear brings out the worst in people. It brings the absolute worst out in people. But we remain high vibration and come from a place of love. And
yes, and you feel then protected by that energy. You feel protected by a great energy, a great light, and you sort of transcend all of that, don't you? And then actually you can bypass it all. It's almost like you're living in, did you feel like that you're living in a different universe at times where...
Well, we are. We're living in a dual reality.
Yes.
And that's becoming more apparent as time is moving on. And it's a parting of the waves.
Yeah.
It's a real parting of the waves in terms of consciousness. And consciousness is expanding. And this is a shift in human consciousness that we are very tuned into and aware of. You can feel it on a cellular level. And really feel this year, there's going to be great change this year.
Yeah.
That's my belief. That's what I feel many other people, and we're lifting the collective frequency.
Yeah.
And this is our role, and I do that through music, and it's also important to remain in the present. And Eckhart Tolle said, be present to the present. That's one of his statements. And that is so important because the future hasn't happened yet. And there's all this fear. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. Well, it hasn't happened yet, has it? But what about right now, today, in the present? How are you feeling today?
Yes. The future doesn't exist, and neither does the past.
Exactly. Yeah.
It all comes from the present right now, isn't it? That's a really good point.
And it's being grateful and appreciating every moment of the present.
Yeah.
You know, daily gratitude. Yeah, there's so much to be grateful for, even though there's all this going on around in the world. But it's all going to collapse. Yeah. This audacious plan is failing. It's failing, and we remain intentional that they are not going to triumph. Evil shall not triumph.
No. And there's a lot of people that are still clearly going along with all the agendas, I think. Like you said, there's quite a sort of split as well in paths that people have taken. But it doesn't feel like we need to worry about numbers. It doesn't feel that that's important. It feels that you can just do everything yourself. We're so super. The energy, that we possess, the power that we have, it's inherent, isn't it? It's not that they can ever take it away. It's an illusion that they've taken away our freedom.
Well,
They haven't really at all. It's impossible to do that.
We're as free as we want to be.
Yeah.
And we choose to be. And we're beings of light.
Yes, exactly.
So we emanate light to the world,
Yes.
not darkness. And these psychopaths that are, kind of running the world, they're a minority. They run into the thousands, not millions. We're the majority, and this is also the Great Awakening, is the understanding of individual sovereign power. People are coming to some realisation that actually I hold strong individual power.
Yes.
We don't need these people telling us what to do.
No.
We live our lives responsibly. We have a wealth of life experience. Sorry, no thank you. No, I think I'll give that a miss.
Yes. And it goes back to Tony
bullshit.
Benn. Yeah,
it's absolute bullshit.
Yeah, it is.
And this country in particular is an extension of Eton College public school. They feel like they're running this country as an extension of a public school. Well, it's up yours.
Yeah.
We don't consent to your restrictions and this, that, and the other. And we're not going to comply with your digital identity and your social credit system and your cashless society, whilst meanwhile plundering the wealth and resources that we... this world is an abundant world, and the new world is going to be abundant for all, and not just this self-proclaimed elite. I will not use that title either, because they're not elite. There's nothing elite about them.
No, just vile.
Nothing elite about these entities. And a lot of them are subhuman.
Yes.
They're not even human. They have no compassion, no empathy, no regard for others. No. It's self. It's self. They're not selfless, they're selfish. Yeah. And narcissistic, sociopaths. Yes. They're all damaged in their own way. Yes. But this energy has been prophesized, and I think the future ahead is very, very bright. Yes. Very bright. We're in a dark tunnel, and there's always light at the end of a tunnel. Yes. And I've been in a few dark tunnels in my life, so that comes with life experience. Yeah. And when you're in that dark tunnel, sometimes you can feel there's no way out of this. Where's it going to end? Where's it going to end? But then the belief comes to the forefront that actually this will end at some point, because nothing is forever. No, nothing is. That's very true. And this is not going to be forever. No. This dystopian world that they are trying to shape, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the UN and their Agenda 30, that's not going to be the world we're living in, and this political landscape, the corruption in politics. We've just got to stop listening to them and complying with this nonsense, It goes back to Tony Benn. You mentioned Tony Benn. He said these things in a similar way. He said, a healthy, confident population is far harder to govern, and educated. Yeah. But not educated in the sense of the indoctrination that's happening to so many people, but in terms of real education, the kind of stuff that you're talking about. Yeah. To realise, real education is realising who you are. Yes. I think we talked about Bob Proctor earlier, and he said that the real education is about finding out who you are and discovering knowing thyself. Yes. And individual power. Yes. Sovereign individual power. We are sovereign beings, and this is another thing, kind of there's an awakening of our own sovereignty. Yes, yes. And particularly around the injection. Yes. What happened there, just this. What was your thoughts when they started to push that agenda? Immediate no. No, that is not entering into my body. No. That's not going to attack my DNA. No. Yeah, my DNA, our DNA is God-given. God is in our DNA. That's kind of how it is. Yeah. But at the beginning, it's immediate no. Yeah. I took them in the 90s for the flu, for example, for 4 years. didn't stop me getting a cold. Well, the flu is a cold.
They always tell you actually that you're probably going to come down with something. That means the jab's working.
I felt
they used
worse
to say.
after having one.
Yeah.
But I still went ahead with it for 4 years, and then I looked up what was in the blooming things, and that was it for me.
Yeah.
And I had travel jabs, and used to go to the British Airways travel clinic and get one for rabies and hepatitis and yellow fever.
Yellow fever,
I had a load of those jabs when I went to India and Thailand in the 90s. My first trips there.
But you wouldn't take those now, or other jabs
No,
as well now? You're wholeheartedly now?
I would never ever take one again in my life. And my son had the MMR at that time when he,
I'm sorry to hear that.
When he was an infant, and he had a reaction to it, and that really solidified my views on kind of the hazards that are associated. And I read all of the Andrew Wakefield reports, who completely slandered, vilified, and had to go and live in America. Andrew Wakefield wrote all the reports about the link with autism and that jab. Yeah. And the facts are there. But they're
still dishing them out like candy.
Well, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So he had that. My son had that, and it shocked me, because when you're a parent, you don't know what to do. It's like,
we've all
his legs swollen up, calling the doctor. And then there was the swine flu, HN1.
Oh yes.
Proposed rollout in 2009, I believe.
Yes.
Sir Liam Fox was the health secretary, the Matt Hancock of at that time.
Yeah.
And they were planning to roll this out on the British population.
Yes.
They
did to a small degree, didn't they?
They did, and there was a lot of harm that took place.
A few deaths, I think.
Yes, there were.
That's why they stopped. They pulled the plug.
Because that was reported. It's a trial. This has been reported, whereas with this current situation, it's been covered up. It's completely been covered up.
But they know they've acknowledged many deaths, but they still carried on into overdrive.
Rolling it out.
Rolling it out.
Yeah.
They just didn't stop, despite so much information coming from places like Israel, where they started the jabs. The harms were coming out in Israel, because I think Israel went for it really quickly. There was a lot of other countries pulled the plug on the AstraZeneca, but here they just went on and on and on and on. It was horrendous, really. I think that, for me, that the jab is really the symbol of this evil force, because it really is. I mean, because it bypasses, we talk about all the other harms that we have in our society. So we breathe in maybe not very good quality air, we even eat toxic food quite often, but there's something about going into the blood directly, because when you breathe in,
it's an invasion of the body.
Yeah, it really is. And the talk of
about body autonomy, it's an invasion.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people set forward because they thought they were doing the right thing for the greater good, and it, again, keeping you safe, and it's for your safety. But that's not a quick fix. No. We have an immune system. Believe in our immune system. Eat healthy, live a healthy lifestyle. You don't need that in your body. That's not going to save you. But this herd mentality, as Matthias Desmet, the Belgian professor, his book, The Science of Totalitarianism, he speaks about mass formation psychosis, where the herd is herded together and they're the majority. And that's what we have witnessed here over the last 4 years and around the world.
Yes.
But we are seeing the harms now, and the ONS figures have been, kind of suppressed, but the data doesn't lie. No. The statistics, it's all there.
And first-hand experience, the number of people, you've probably come across a lot of people, like you mentioned, even your son having an adverse reaction initially. And I've met so many people, lots of people who are making that connection. And not just one, but hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Every day.
It's not safe and effective.
No, not at all.
These buzzwords and, safe and effective. And let's cast our mind back to those evil ads that were produced and, kind of save your granny and all of those hazard, like yellow and red, hazard, danger, the imagery and that marketing campaign that marketing company in Chelsea were paid millions of pounds to produce all of that, with the pictures of people on ventilators in hospital.
Oh, look them in the eye and all that stuff.
All of that horrible, fear-based propaganda that was everywhere, wasn't it, at that time? Everywhere. And that had an influence on people.
Of course.
And the fear was rising.
They targeted everybody. They targeted all the young people. They targeted young people. Said if you hang out on the streets of London, wherever on the streets of the UK, you could, be harming someone like your grandmother. Yeah. They just was relentless, wasn't it? It really was.
Playing on the emotions through fear. But we could see through that. And that used to make me angry, seeing those bloody things on bus stops.
I used to go on the train and just tear the signs down. I used to just rip them off.
Rip them down.
Feel better afterwards.
Take them down. There was lots of people just take this propaganda down.
We used to go on the trains and just take them down. Oh, they were awful. And then collect them. I remember Piers collected them and dumped them outside Mayor of London's
That's right,
office, I think it was. Bless him,
But the fear machine, the propaganda had a massive effect upon society.
It did. It was
massive.
Relentless. They were trying to get us to manifest their evil vision, and unfortunately, a lot of people did. You see.
Well,
that's how it works.
They didn't compensate for the Great Awakening. They didn't expect the Great Awakening to be at the scale at what it is.
No, definitely.
But again, the Great Awakening has been prophesised, and this is where we're at, and it's so exciting because that is gathering momentum towards a critical mass. Yes. And when anything becomes a critical mass, it's game over for what's going on here. Game over, and we are heading towards that critical mass.
I think that what they've done, they must have been very, very desperate, because to me they exposed themselves completely. They've exposed that everything they've ever stood for is an inverted lie. Nothing that they say is the truth at all.
Oh gosh, no.
It's exposed everything about them and everything about their history as well. We gradually look back to history and think a lot of our history's been hidden from us.
Absolutely,
because if we know our power, and we know our ancestral power as well, and that our ancestors are probably still with us at this time, and the earth is there for us as well, and the trees, and we're all together, as one. Then if we all realise that power, which many of us are now, like you say, then it really is game over for them.
Oh, absolutely. And this is spiritual warfare.
It is,
that we're aware of. We feel this. We're spiritual beings. We feel it. We feel this in every cell in our body. And that's the dual reality that we're living in. And this. I feel that we're very, very blessed in this lifetime at this a major shift in history that we're living through. Even more, kind of 1939-45, the Second World War, major point in history on a world scale. And now that what we're going through, this is far greater than that, on a grander scale. And we're here standing on the right side of history.
Yes, absolutely.
And we stand in our power and our beliefs. And they're not going to succeed.
No. As long as we always remember that all the time, that even in a dark situation or any difficult, challenging situations that will always face us, there's always a positive thing. I think, again, we go back to Bob Proctor, who talked about the law of polarity. So for every negative, there's always a positive, even in the darkest of times, as we're facing now, very dark times. But we've risen above that, and we've found the positivity in that. And we're not going to let them affect us in any way.
We're very resilient.
We are. And look at us, we're brought together here today.
Resilient.
Yes.
And let's just say that the financial system does collapse, and it's a complete financial meltdown, because that's part of their plan to move towards a central bank digital currency. There's a lot of reports and articles and viewpoints on that. Well, let's just say that did happen. We would survive.
Yes.
We'd survive. We'd find a way.
There was a life before money.
Exactly. We would survive.
The greatest resource is the human resource, you see.
Absolutely.
It's not some piece of metal.
And our
we've not metal anymore.
To adjust. So I have no fear around that. I've been there in the past. So, and you can survive.
Yes.
And we're resilient. And when the pressure's on, we become more resilient. And there's communities forming. across the whole world.
Yeah, we talked about
Which
like
is where
Hope
it's leading
Sussex and
to.
things like
It's
that.
leading to. And that's very exciting as well.
It is.
The Pinhel Foundation in Portugal. This is taking shape now.
Could you tell us a bit more about the Pinhel Foundation?
They're based in the mountains in Portugal, so they're a self-supporting community. They've been featured, I think it was in Time magazine or something. But they're living outside of the matrix. A very interesting group, and their vision for the world. And
Hope Sussex here, as you mentioned.
Hope Sussex is a great school that's teaching a lot of things that are not on the school curriculum of today in traditional schooling.
Yeah, like foraging.
Life skills.
Yeah, life skills.
Life skills.
Things they don't want us to know.
Well, exactly.
So then we have to depend on them all the time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But this is the thing, we're not going to be funneled into this enslavement system of this Agenda 30 plan and the World Economic Forum headed by, I mean, you look at him, Swab, he's just out of a Bond movie.
Yeah.
He's
it's almost
villain.
Comical, theatrical.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah, can't take him seriously.
But some people, they don't get it.
No.
They don't get it.
All of them, yeah.
They don't see that he's not right.
No.
And the agenda, what they're presenting, and their meetings in Davos. We had Keir Starmer, Westminster or Davos. Davos. That's where everything gets done.
Yeah. Again, I speak of Bob Proctor because he always said, if you do look at these newspapers or the media, by chance you come across something, ask yourself, is this story going to help my future? Is it going to help me to get to where I want to get to? And he said, if it doesn't, just switch it out of your mind, put it out of your mind, and ignore it.
Yeah, exactly.
Doom and gloom doesn't have to come. He always said, even in the most difficult times when there was the Depression, he said, doom and gloom doesn't have to come. There's always great times for some people. It's all your state of mind, isn't it? What do you want to absorb? What do you want to visualize? And I think they're not telling us the very important thing is this visual image that we should have of ourselves. Because what they want to do is they want us always to look externally. Take the ticket and follow everyone else. Do exactly as everyone else is doing, so look externally. They don't want us to go inside, so they don't teach us about, that visual image that we should have of ourselves, or going inside, which is who we really are. We're not our name, we're not our body so much. Like you said, the body's just a vehicle. The mind is also just a small part. The real essence of us is the soul, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The spirit,
absolutely,
as you say.
Yes.
So that's where we've got to go.
We're not QR code cattle.
No.
We're really not QR code cattle.
And not labels either.
No. But I feel optimistic about what's ahead. It's gonna get a lot more bumpy. Of course it is. But it's a battle, and let's also. These battles. We're being bombarded with all of these different things because that's their desperation, and there's a barrage of everything. It's hard to keep up at times.
Yes.
But it's focusing on what the most important battles are.
Yes. I really admire your positivity, and you bring great hope about the future. I really also admire the way that you approach life, your health. I think that's very important because I think a lot of people are saying, we look back on the terrible 4 years that we've had or what they've tried to do, how they've tried to attack humanity. And in many cases, obviously for so many people, they've succeeded in doing that. There's so much optimism. And what people want to know then is that, okay, so we've had all this barrage of awful jabs. People have got cancer, for example. And if we don't want to do the chemotherapy, then what do we do as an alternative? So people want to know, if we're not going to go to the supermarkets, then where are we going to get our food from? How are we going to grow? What are the solutions, so to speak?
Well, it's a little bit more difficult in urban environments, isn't it? Yeah, but there's still independent businesses, but it's just this whole supermarket thing. Yeah, we go in supermarkets, but they dominate the market in certain areas, but it's supporting independent business and local business and eating healthy. And cooking our own food and not eating processed food.
I must admire you because you are in great health. You look very
Thank you.
youthful. This is really inspirational.
Thank you.
And I would just like to ask, what sort of things are you doing in terms of looking after your health? Because you mentioned a few things earlier, like fasting and this great swimming that you do as well in the cold waters of the English Channel. Yeah,
that all happened as a result of the L word when I wasn't working, and like many people, and we weren't on furlough. We weren't sitting in the garden sipping rosé wine and put another prawn on the barbecue. In our dressing gowns. We're on holiday and we're getting paid. Very different scenario for us. So as a result of really, kind of 2 or 3 months of feeling quite depressed, a friend of mine, he said, look up Wim Hof. So I looked up Wim Hof and then saw the cold water immersion. And I live by the sea. And I hadn't been in the sea over the years I lived locally, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So it was March. Was it March? No, March, April. I think it was 2020. Started getting in the sea, and it really helped. It really helped with the state of mind, general health, and continued with that. And also that drew so many people into the cold water immersion as one thing. And the popularity has soared. Now there's also the doom mongers. Well, that's bad for you. That's not good for you. Well, it's remarkably good for you. It's a serotonin boost and a positive endorphin rush, and great for circulation, cardiovascular system, stress management, anxiety, all manner of things, and issues. But so that was the start, really, of the cold water immersion, and it's wonderful because you feel so alive after getting in the cold water. It's not easy initially, and it's never really easy, but you get in. Once you're in, then
it's okay, isn't it?
It's what follows, and you just feel like you're glowing. You are glowing. It's
worthwhile.
This feeling, this sensation of inner heat and warmth and energy. So that the cold water immersion, and very blessed to live by the English Channel, and I started to meditate. So I use an app called Insight Timer, and I'll meditate 15 minutes. I may do 2 or 3 of those meditations a day, but generally about 15 minutes, just short bursts of meditation, and just go off, switch off, and into the meditative state. Again, as a consequence of the restrictions that were going on at the time, and going out walking for miles, when they said, what was the statement? You're only allowed out of your house for 1 hour a day. Jog on. So we went out jogging.
Good.
Oh gosh, and how are you going to monitor that then?
Impossible.
So I think for a lot of us, we just went out and walked, and good thinking time when you're out in the open air and around nature, and woodland, and good for the mind, body, and soul. So the meditation, and I practice meditation every day, it's a very positive experience and practice.
How does it help you in other aspects of your life, having done this meditation?
How does it help?
What is the lasting effect?
It quietens the mind, and it switches the mind off from, I have a very active mind and always doing something, but it's just switching the mind off, and stillness. Stillness is very important. Solitude and stillness, not too much solitude, but it's very important. And the thinking time that comes with solitude and stillness, and it's an integral part of one's day. And also fasting.
Yes, this is very interesting. How is your fast regimen? What is it?
I eat between 12 noon and 6 p.m. So, and then for the other hours, I don't eat. Drink, but no food. So it's really made a difference. Clarity, mind, energy. Fasting gives you a lot more energy. Also, the weight loss, because those 2 years particularly that first year where I wasn't working, I was comfort eating in the evening. Big bags of crisps, whole bowls of chocolate. I mean, I love chocolate.
So I had some
just
dark
eating
chocolate,
too much of that, and cheese, and and
that was another part of their plan.
And booze.
Well, they made it available, isn't it? So cheap. And the pubs opened before the pools.
But there was no pubs open, were there?
But when they did open, they opened the pubs first.
Yeah, with the Scotch egg.
Not the gym, yes.
Who'd want to eat a Scotch egg anyway?
No.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
You need to put a mask on to go to that table and sign into the pub.
Yeah.
So when the pub here opened, I used to sign in as Matt Hancock or Boris Johnson on those stupid forms, or anywhere I went.
Mad, isn't
Westminster, Matt Hancock.
He's everywhere. Crazy.
So yes, the fasting. I began fasting. I've been thinking about that throughout 2022, and it was on New Year's Eve. I set intentions, not resolutions, just intentions for the year ahead, and I started to fast and haven't looked back. And the weight I go to, obviously, to the gym as well, combined, the weight just started falling off. I was getting a bit portly, through everything that was going on. So I keep up the fasting, and
this is great.
It's again, it's the clarity that comes with it, and the energy. Feel a lot more energized, and really in those 6 hours, I eat less now because obviously my body and digestive system has adjusted through the hours of not eating. So if there's a food shortage as well, our bodies are adjusting to eating less.
Yes,
and that's another thing to consider. So maybe we're feeling this with everything that's happening in the world, and preparing ourselves in the event of that happening. Our bodies will be better prepared for a food shortage.
This is that's a great thought.
If that happened.
Yes.
I don't focus on that, but I was just thinking maybe that's our bodies just naturally, and the universe be getting into fasting, regular fasting. And again,
maybe we don't need that much food in the first place.
Exactly.
Maybe that's how we lived in the past.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you had to go and forage for food, or you had to hunt, you were not always guaranteed that you would find what you needed. Yeah. So you would have to then survive without that, I suppose.
For periods, yeah.
Yeah.
So lots of benefits with fasting, and as I said, I eat less. Not that I had huge plates of food, and but it's just adjustment. Positive health benefits.
Yes.
Yeah, it's only a positive. There's no negatives associated with it, and it's discipline of the mind as well. That kind of. Sometimes I get hungry in the evening or something, or early morning, but I just occupy that time drinking tea and then go to a gym class or something, and then getting on with business and work. So after a period of time, you don't think about it. You don't think about eating in the mornings. You might have the odd craving of something occasionally, but the body adjusts.
It's great to have this self-discipline, because I heard Kipchoge, he's no longer the world record holder, but he was the marathon world record holder, and he said that self-discipline was actually freedom for him and helped him in his success.
Yes.
That you do have to say, it's not imposed from anyone else outside, it's your own imposition. You decide that I'm going to stick to this routine, or I'm not going to, even though I'm hungry.
Absolutely, yes.
It does give freedom, I believe.
And that's very important, really important.
Yes. Well, you're in good company with Kipchoge there. So. And I was so impressed when I met you at the rallies, because a lot of the celebrities, they're often keyboard warriors, some of the ones who've spoken. I mean, it's fine, that's great, and still can be very helpful.
Yeah.
But people just coming out on the front line, there's nothing like giving that energy in person. And there's nothing like that courage to actually come out and face your fellow human beings and let them know that, hey, I'm here and this is what I stand for, and I've got some information and a message to give. And I often saw you there, and I thought, Wow, you're still
Lots
grounded.
of us.
Yeah,
Lots of us.
you're still grounded as a human being, you know, to your true nature, your true self. And so good to see you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
What took you to the front line? Because you did hang out with Piers Corbyn and his gang, which was fabulous. Yeah,
I
and
love
others
Piers,
like that.
and Piers actually was quite influential. In May 2020 in Hyde Park, there was a rally, which I didn't attend. That was the first rally, and lots of people got arrested.
Yeah.
And I saw this video of Piers in London, and I didn't know who Piers Corbyn was. I hadn't seen his activism before this particular time. And then I started watching his videos, and then started going to rallies. And Kate Shemirani on Instagram, she was leaning more towards health, but everything that was happening at that time, and then she was subsequently banned from Instagram, and ostracised everywhere. I used to follow her posts. She'd do these walks in Sussex, where she lives, and talking about health and about everything that was happening. So we were feeling this, and then seeing others, it's like, well, this is where we belong. And standing in our truth against this tyrannical, evil agenda without fear. Yeah, okay, lost business contacts, work. That's the divide that's been created, isn't it? And we've all experienced it one way or another. Family, I would not have that with my own family. I said, no, we're not going to divide. You know, it's a difference of opinion. Let's kind of respect each other's opinion. But kind of in the workplace and everywhere else, we've all experienced this divide. Yeah, and the persecution that goes with that, and the ridicule and everything else. It's shrug it off, and back to that. So the rallies, just standing up for what we believe in, just as kind of our forefathers did in 1935-45, the Second World War. That spirit of we need to stand up. We need to stand up, because this is standing up to wrongdoing. And that's something my grandfather taught me. Always stand up to wrongdoing, who was shelled at Dunkirk and badly wounded. And he was a military man. That influence of his values of life shaped me as the man I am.
Yeah. They were fighting fascism as we are now. They were fighting fascism.
Oh gosh,
Did your grandfather go through all of that to see us just give it all away?
Exactly.
The freedom
Exactly.
all away?
And those men and women would be turning in their graves with what's happened in recent times. But we are the bearers of the light, and the power that we have to overcome this agenda. And it is fascism again, what's going on here. With the WEF and these organisations and these unelected technocrats and bureaucrats, and this feudalism that's happening.
Totally. In terms of young people, just also linking back to your music career, things have really changed now for youngsters. The whole music industry has changed. The way that people even DJ, the technology has come into it, and changed that as well. What advice would you give to young people based on the way that you approached your dreams and making those dreams a reality? What advice would you give to the youngsters now who want to follow in this career similar to yours as a DJ, let's say?
It's a very popular option for a career, but it's not getting into the career to make lots of money. There's a small percentage that do, that make the mega bucks very quickly, but that's a very small percentage with the luck. But there's a lot more opportunity for that, but that's not what it's about. It's not about the ego and coming in, and for some people it is, unfortunately. But this is the deconstruction of the ego age we're living in. It's about following passion, and that belief that this is my passion, this is my calling, this is my dharma in life, and following that. And it's not a quick solution that you're going to have overnight fame and success. It takes time. It takes time and experience that's learned along the way. My son is he's studying at uni. He's DJing, and that makes me very proud. I never thought I would see that day, and that makes me really proud. And he's promoting club nights with his student mates, and it's brilliant. And I played with him in Brixton in January, and that was such an incredible, uplifting, monumental night as a father. And his mum was there, and the DJ that played before me, Joe, he's the son of Tall Paul, the leading DJ, and then my son Claudio went back to back with Jay Ribbon, who's the son of Tall Paul's brother Danny. So I was sandwiched in between the Newmans, yes, and it was great. All of the kind of the 20-somethings, they were having a great time, and it really my energy was reciprocated. So they've got great, that youthful energy. It got me bouncing around in the booth. Yes. And they're like, "Oh, we love your dad. Your dad's great."
Yeah, bless.
He's cool.
Yeah, you're still.
It was a very touching night to to have that experience.
You're still an influence on the younger generation. Yeah, which is great just to hear. Yes.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, this is the thing. The youth are the future, and the children are the future of the world, and also why we stand on the front line is for the future of our children, as our forefathers did, and the world that we see for our children and their children to live in. It's how we're shaping the world. So that's also why we're doing this, for the children and and their children of tomorrow. A very, very, important part of this.
It's our duty. We are the custodians.
Standing for our future, and at the same time, our kids. And the Indigo children, they're incredible, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Quite right.
Yeah.
Any final message from yourself? Any final message for the public? Anything that you can add?
There are not enough messages there.
Lots of messages. Anything?
Yeah,
else?
hold the intention that this is not going to last forever, and can't dismiss it. No, we'll still be fighting these battles, kind of battle by battle, and there's a lot of them going on at the moment.
Yes.
And don't give up hope, and don't get bogged down into the fear vortex. Just and also the fear porn is on both sides. What is deemed as conspiracy theories to that side. There's bad information there as well. Just stay away from that. Projections of like this horrible dystopian future. As I said earlier, that hasn't happened yet, so stay away from that crap as well, because that's all fear-mongering and doom-mongering, and hold a high vibration, positive mindset, and intentionality of where we're going with our lives, and make the absolute best of our lives, even in the face of adversity. It's
a real gift, isn't it?
It's hard. I'm not, trivialising that. It's hard in the face of adversity. It is, but it's having that strength and capacity to move forward and keep moving forward. And there's a great world of abundance that is ahead of us. A world that we could not even imagine, many people.
We've only scratched the surface.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's already happening. It's in momentum. And that's very exciting. And, some see that right now. Many people see that right now and feel that. Some do not, and they believe that's being over-optimistic. But what we think about, we attract, and what we manifest. So what kind of world do we want to create and manifest?
Let's make that happen.
That world over there, that dystopian world there. No, we're not complying with that. We're not complying with it.
Not at all.
And as David Icke said, do not acquiesce. He's been saying this message for decades.
Yes.
Decades. Ridiculed, slandered. He's this, he's that, he's a crank.
Not at all.
But actually, in my opinion, I believe that he's a spiritual visionary, and he had a spiritual awakening on a mountain.
Yes.
So a very, very tuned in spiritual being. A light worker.
Yes, a lot of.
But that message is all it takes. We don't have to comply to this. You're telling us to comply. It's up to us Just don't comply.
Absolutely.
Stand in our own power courageously, whatever that takes, whatever it takes. Because if we comply with it, they may get their way.
And look after
They
yourself.
may get their way. Yes,
we have a duty to look after ourselves.
Absolutely.
To be the best version of ourselves that we
Absolutely.
possibly can be.
Yeah.
Because it's what
Health
we are
is
as a gift,
paramount.
isn't it? Yeah.
Paramount.
We're a gift. And if we can do that, then we won't hopefully get caught up in all the pharmaceutical problems and the ill health that then comes with that, you see. It's to just keep away from it to the best of our ability, isn't it?
Well, that's choice, isn't it? That is our choice, and that's how we choose to live our life.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, health is wealth, and it's our time and health, most precious commodity. Everything else is just other external stuff. You know, kind of money, everything. You know, it's like, you know, kind of this, travel, everything. You know, okay, money buys freedom, but it doesn't buy happiness.
Yeah,
it buys freedom, and we all need money.
Yes.
We all need money. Yeah.
Yes, we're all part of the system to some degree, isn't it? We try to let go of aspects of it, but we're still in the system.
Well, we are at present, but
won't be for long.
But where it's heading, it's going to be a very different landscape. Very different landscape.
Yes, absolute pleasure to talk to you. I really enjoyed that. I hope you did too.
Yes, yeah.
Real pleasure. Thank you.
Great pleasure to talk to you.